Hello, let's talk auto. This is Brand Love, how to build a brand worth talking about. My name's Graham Brown. I'm joined by my colleague Jamal Benmiloud. Today we're heading to Motor City, Detroit to meet John Waraniak, VP of Technology of SEMA, the Special Equipment Manufacturers Association for the auto industry. SEMA is where the magic happens. It's where Google showcases its self-driving car, it's where the brands connect with the enthusiasts, and it's where the latest trends in auto break first. So with that in mind, let's talk about what's happening at the cutting edge of auto. So much change. Who'd have thought Google, Tesla and Apple would become prominent names in the auto industry? But it's happening. So much convergence, changes in technology, changes in customers with the millennial generation growing up, and changes in marketing with auto brands slowly waking up to the fact that Super Bowl ads aren't the only game in town when it comes to engaging buyers. So John, give us the lowdown on what's happening in auto today. What do we need to know?
Alrighty. Great intro, I think, on the segue, because, today's cars and trucks, as well as the industry itself, the auto industry, is being reinvented, restructured, and re-envisioned as we speak. Cars are moving quickly from, traditional standalone mechanical products to smart electronic products over the last probably 10, 20 years. And now today it's connected smart products, and the automobile, cars and trucks are basically major players in the Internet of Things. We are entering what I'm calling the golden age of new performance, thanks to all the vehicle technologies. And being here in the Motor City, Detroit still is the epicenter for a lot of the technology. Certainly Silicon Valley and Detroit, the Motor City, are working together and collaborating because, the Googles and Apples and the Teslas of the world, they still need I'll call it the traditional automotive, but as we get into the golden age of new performance, we're really in the third generation or the third revolution of the automotive industry and the vehicles themselves.
Exciting times. And how are the traditional guys dealing with it? Are they up with the change? You've got the Googles, the Apples, and the Teslas coming in. Are they threatened by this? Are they looking at it as a great opportunity to evolve? What's the
question? Yeah, it started off certainly a threat, no doubt about it. You would have expected, many would have expected Tesla, for example, to be invented or incubated in the Detroit area, but it did not. And profound change can only come from somewhere else. So I think it started off as a threat, I'd say 5 to 10 years ago, but now it's more of an embracing of a collaboration. Nearly every automaker has I'll call it a scouting post or a talent post or a technology post in Silicon Valley and other areas of the world because it truly is a global industry. Certainly the vehicles that are represented today have so much digital tech and embedded software. I don't like to say they're computers on wheels, but they certainly are an extension of that digital lifestyle, and particularly the millennials.
Do they look at it as in terms of lifestyle, or they just look at it in terms of, we've got to have Bluetooth in the car, so we've got to put it in the car? I mean, are they being pulled into this market, or are they pushing the development of the technology?
Well, they're doing both. Some of it is certainly, there's always a competitive advantage. Like if we have, speaking from an automaker perspective, they like to have a competitive advantage. We have this or we have that. But because a lot of the digital technology is open source or open innovation, they realize no one's rich enough or smart enough to do it alone. So they do need the collaboration with, I'll call it, the Silicon Valley content in the vehicles, as well as the ability to design those vehicles. You can't talk about, perhaps in this case, loving the brand, particularly in auto, without talking about the design. And again, the true millennials, they want to know, how do they fit into that brand story? How do they fit into that design story? So the automakers certainly are a big part of the design. The brand is certainly a big part of the technology that's being collaborated on across the world and built into vehicles.
So how do you do that? I mean, if you're developing a car, and as far as I know, the development cycle of a car, on average, is about 7 years, right? I mean, you can't really fit customers into that development process, or can you? Are people actually getting their heads around the idea of getting customers on board as partners in the production process? I mean, they might not be sort of designing the Homer-style car thing, but they might be sort of involved at some point in the process.
Absolutely, and you're right, and good calibration. Yeah, a lot of people used to think that, 7 years for a brand new platform or vehicle to be designed. It's down to about 3 to 5 today. 3 years for 36 months for a pretty quick turnaround on a model or variant, and and maybe 3 to 5 years for a totally new vehicle. But you're right, incorporating the consumer and projecting out. It's kind of like the Steve Jobs quote, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. What the automakers have to do is connect the dots looking forward. And to do that, you really do need to trust your instincts and have the right people and the right thinking on board. You need the design thinking for the product content of the vehicle, but you also need the social thinking for the brand context of the vehicle. And you need both. And to me, basically, the design content is running the same race faster. And some people can do that. Some automakers can do that well. The brand context is running a different race, and you need both. You got to run the same race faster today, but you also got to run a different race in order to differentiate yourself in a very crowded world. Fortunately, sales are up, globally, but that technology is becoming the key differentiator. I should say the use and the experience that consumers have with the technology, that's the brand differentiator.
Jamal, do you want to come in here as a marketer? What are your thoughts?
I was just going to ask about sort of brand experience. With the conversion of someone actually test driving a car to actually going on to buy, I guess things haven't changed in that way. That marketeers are still trying to drive people to the showrooms. Where have you seen good examples of people creating brand experiences and engagement with car brands over the last 5 or 10 years?
Definitely performance. Although performance isn't for everyone. When I say performance, I'm talking about making a car fast and cool. Certainly, That's kind of the traditional stuff. But now it's making my car smart and connected. So it's fast and cool and smart and connected. You need all 4 of those brand dimensions, if you will. And if you look at what Ford did, the Ford GT, the Ford Mustang, the Raptor, they're producing 12 new performance variants over the next 5 years. The new Chevy Camaro that comes out this Saturday, the Toyota TRD Pro Series, the Tesla, the S model particularly, those are all brand identities being manifested with the automotive designs and the technologies in those vehicles to create that consumer experience that gives them fast and cool, smart and connected. Mark Fields described the new Ford Raptor, the Ford F-150, as not just the coolest truck, but certainly the smartest truck that they've come out with so far at Ford.
And do you see the way that these guys have been marketing their brands has changed over the years? So has it moved away from the awareness model of big advertising and those kind of things to more experiential or collaborations with people like say with Ken Block, etc. with Ford? What have you seen has been the shift in the way that successful companies have been doing better marketing?
They're being much more specific, much more targeted. So a true brand, a successful brand basically is not for everyone. It's specific for someone. And I think that's really where the branding strategies are moving towards, much more specific, much more viral. And again, how do I fit into the story, telling the story of that brand, or how do I fit into the design? And the design, again, is very polarizing because it's basically the body language for the car. Does it pull you into the brand? Does it help you identify with the brand? And then developing a marketing strategy with those fans and enthusiasts. Again, the performance dimension, if you will, particularly the SEMA connection to performance, it's all about the fans and enthusiasts, not your general customer.
And who's generating, just a quick one, who's generating some exciting sort of, brand love, some fan love at the moment? Where are you seeing sort of the excitement is from your perspective at SEMA?
It's going directly to the front line. The people that are out, as Graham and I have spoken before, it's going to the Gemba, Genchi Gembutsu. It's going to the front line where it's happening. It's not hiring people to pretend or to fake to be a poser that what's happening on the front line. It's going out to the front line and getting that information firsthand and building it into, in this case, the brand and the design and the vehicle. It's another Japanese term that I love is the wakudoki. It's basically that heart-pounding authenticity and excitement of the Gemba, whatever that front line might be. It might be action sports, it might be a surf lifestyle, it might be manifested in some other lifestyle that consumer is directed towards that brand and that design of that vehicle.
Okay.
Who's actually doing that right now?
Oh, I think almost all of them are, and some with more success than the others. Particularly when you get into the A, B, and C segment, the small vehicles, because it's tough to make money at the small car segment. It has been and probably will be for quite a while, because that typical segment doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a vehicle, but they expect and they demand that they have the technology and the cool factor, again, the fast and cool as well as smart and connected, at the low end of the vehicle. So you're seeing the technologies and the features and systems from luxury vehicles and performance vehicles trickle down into the first entry vehicles very quickly and still being cool.
So when I look at the auto market, I think you can easily take a traditional view of which are the most loved brands, and it would always be the luxury brands, the German luxury cars and so on that have the highest brand ratings whenever they do these surveys. But what's kind of interesting is that over the last few years we're starting to see the emergence of maybe some of those brands that operate down in the ABC category, brands like Ford, which are really developing what we call brand love, even though they aren't traditionally seen as a luxury brand. Have you got any thoughts on why that's happening and what they're doing right?
Absolutely, yeah, and again, going to the Gemba, if you look at the A, B, and C segments, you look at the Ford Fiesta, and a lot what Ford did with the Fiesta movement when Jim Farley created that. Same thing he did with the Scion at Toyota. When you look at how to build that cool factor into small cars, Ford built it around the Gymkhana, particularly with Ken Block. That expanded into the X Games around the world with the Global X Games. And more importantly, what grew out of that was a race series called the Red Bull Global Rallycross. And you take Red Bull Global Rallycross has one of the largest automaker participations in it. And you take Subaru, you take Citroen, you take Volkswagen, you take Ford, you take any of those automakers that are competing in Global Rallycross, they are getting their message across to the millennials with a very different type of racing series. In this case, I like to say it's designed around the motocross or supercross format for fans that have attention deficit disorder. It's conflict resolution, short motos, short formats, lots of racing, lots of contact, and lots of, I'll call it spectator, fan, and automaker and sponsor involvement. It's very much at the Gemba of where motorsports is going, and that's what appeals to the consumers and the companies of all that. I mean, Subaru literally uses the word love in their branding strategies, which is great.
That's interesting. And they're right at the front line. It's interesting, isn't it, that when we talk about auto, we also talk about energy drinks. And here we have two guys, from both industries at the peak of their achievements in the marketing and the technology side of things. I'm just curious to know why you think these two industries seem to be following each other around. What's going on there?
I think there's a lot of crossover between that the demo and psychographics of that small A, B, and C car segment purchasers today, as well as what their lifestyles are all about. Certainly digital tech, the car represented 20 to 50 years ago that first, I'll call it, instrument of freedom to get in and go where you wanted to with your buddies, your friends, etc. Well, now that car is arguably part of your computer and your phone circle. So there's a lot of things happening with autos. But the good thing is autos are still part of that lifestyle. Some folks like to call that digital lifestyle kind of the Internet of Things. Well, how does the automobile fit into the Internet of Things? And is it a node on the Internet of Things, or is it a major player in people's digital lifestyles? I think it's certainly a major player in people's digital lifestyles.
Jamal, it's exciting, isn't it, when we talk about the auto industry, how much that resonates with the kind of things that you were working on at Red Bull and Monster as well. I mean, technology aside, that whole focus on innovation and, working with fans at the front line and so on. Does it sort of feel like you're back there again? What do you feel when you actually listen to this talk about the auto industry?
Yeah, I remember going to SEMA and seeing the passion that the fans had when Ken was there. I think there was a sort of a Gymkhana demo that was put on, And it's really interesting to me because it was a place where I really felt like both energy brands and, obviously the car brands, automotive brands, had a very similar philosophy. It was like, what could we do for the fans? How could we create an experience for them, which would build love from the fans and get, contact with Ken, etc. And it really is like, as John was saying, it's a shared demographic. The motorsport is that amazing, combination of performance, but with sort of, the coolness and credibility and personality of the drivers and, the competition aspect. And it is where, brands were built, I have to say, I think the energy brands, cottoned on to that, with Rebel starting it and then Monster coming in and having a sort of different spin on it. But it is the bedrock of, where not just, car brands are being built, but so many other brands now are sort of looking to those scenes to build up their fan base.
Exactly. And if you look at SEMA, yes, it's a car show, if you look at the content, but in terms of context, it's a lifestyle show. In this case, not necessarily for people that like cars, but for people that love cars. And the automotive lifestyle, in that case, is very, very powerful. To me, one of the best quotes I remember was from Colin Baden, the chief mad scientist, if you will, at Oakley. He said, the true value of a brand is in its culture. And when you think about SEMA as a brand, the culture of SEMA is very close to what the consumer thinks is or perceives as the cool factor. And each generation certainly has its own set of life experiences. In my case, it might be like Steve McQueen to Peter Fonda. In many cases today, it's Travis Pastrana and Ken Block. And that's what the automobile companies, automakers that get it, are tied into things like the X Games, SEMA, and the energy drink. That's all part of that lifestyle of the fans and enthusiasts that are the go-to people, the influencers that influence the general mass market population.
And just on that point, it shows whatever it is that that you're building and growing, it always comes back to people and products, right? Create brands. So as you were saying, the quality of the product, the quality of the design, the quality of the experience, but then the magic is when you pair it with the right person, the right influencer, and you really sort of fuel that, great things happen, and that's what we're seeing in energy drinks and in automotive as well.
Exactly. And there's an old quote from Steve McQueen from the movie Le Mans, and he said, racing is life. Everything before or after is just waiting. And it's very true with millennials today. It's like connectivity. Everything before and after is just waiting to be connected. So the car better be connected, and not so much the cars per se being designed to be connected, but my phone better connect to my car so that I am still connected in that car, or I will find a car or a set of systems to upgrade or retrofit my car, put me into that. And that's again, you can never be too connected. And the younger you are, the more you get it, and not necessarily your age, but your world view of how you stay connected. And people like Neil Young came out to the SEMA show, and he had a great quote. He said, an old car can take you to new places. Mm-hmm. And his whole theme of his link bolt is repowering the American dream, or in many cases, repowering the global dream. And I think that's really what a lot of the next generation people expect out of an automobile. It's basically cars that don't crash, devices that don't distract, and powertrains that don't pollute. I want all three of those, and I will keep pushing the industry until I get those. And I think the millennials are, again, they're demanding that in the automobiles that they want to purchase. So if the automakers want to stay in business, they need to make sure that the vehicles they develop do those three things. Don't crash, don't pollute, and don't distract.
Awesome. John, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I'm going to cut it there. Always feel psyched up, hyped up when I talk to you. I feel the energy coming from Detroit now. Feels like there's a man who doesn't need any Red Bull or Monster to get him charged up.